Welcome back. This is the Alchemist Nation podcast. My name is Walter Morello, and I'll be your host. I travel all across the country, and we interview some of the top people who are experts in their field in real estate. And for the next couple of weeks, we're actually going deep into credit repair. Kelvin McNeil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, Kelvin, the reason I brought you on here is because I had a lot of people who have been asking me about credit. So I've been giving the basic advice that I believe in. And one of the things that comes up often is, should I have my credit fixed? Do I need my credit fixed to do real estate? And although the answer is you don't have to, you're going to pay a lot of interest if you can't keep your credit together. And what all credit does is say that you can keep your things that you say you're going to do. You're going to keep your accountability. Like, you're just going to do them. You're not going to take out debt and then not pay it. So in real estate, the debt gets way bigger, and the banks rely on credit because you have to be a trustworthy person who's going to actually pay your bills and do what you say you're going to do. And credit's just a gauge for them to say, okay, this person for a period of time has been very consistent. So Kelvin, how did you get into credit repair?
My personal story is, in my early 20s, I had terrible credit. Okay. My scores were somewhere in the, high 400s into the 500 range. Just like a lot of us, I'm sure, when I turned 18 and checked the mail one day and bam, there was a credit card. I'm like, oh, so yeah, exactly.
They just keep sending them.
Shopping spree. I went on a shopping spree, maxed it out. Of course, I knew nothing about credit. I didn't know that this would, last for seven years on my credit report. Then ultimately, when I, became an adult and I realized, like, damn, I can't even get a car without a cosigner. So that's really what spurred me into trying to figure out, how can I fix this? Because I can't continue to live my life like this, trying to ask, my father or whoever else to co-sign for me. So long story short, I did all the research, I paid for courses, now I'm a board certified credit consultant. And that's how I got into the credit repair industry. Started my business because essentially I just wanted to help as many people as possible do what I did for myself, except it took me years. I'm able to help people do the same, but in a few months.
So basically, you're a product of the product. You went, you paid to learn, you got educated,
right?
And so now you have good credit, and so you believe in what you're selling. So it makes sense. I always say to people, the best investment's the one up here, because once you have like that knowledge, you can go and improve just about anything. So credit repair is important. You got into it from your own personal experience of not having credit and not being able to buy things. When you went to go and purchase your house, was credit an issue for you, or is that something that you had already cleaned it up?
Well, honestly, within the last few years, right around the time I began to think about starting my own business was when I started to see, my own results. I'm like, wow, I think I may be on to something here. If I really invest in my skills a little bit more, I can help others. But yeah, when I first moved down to Georgia, which is where I live now, like I said, my credit scores were terrible, man. And, I couldn't even think about, owning anything, let alone a house, but yeah, I had to, work on myself first, so yeah, that was number one, was, getting myself in place. I had to learn about, adding, different, trade lines that could get me to where I actually have an established credit, right? Because it's not only about bad credit, you have to actually have, good credit or build enough credit for lenders to be able to have a credit history or payment history to, determine whether or not you are considered, worthy, of getting their money.
I like it. So it's, so when you start with somebody, like when somebody comes to you and says, hey, Kelvin, I want to get my credit checked, or they call, green scale credit, what is typically the story you're hearing? What is typically that person saying to you?
Well, typically I deal with a lot of, first time home buyers or people who, unfortunately came upon hard times during COVID-19. So they're either trying to purchase a new home or they're just trying to get back to where they were before the pandemic, essentially. So, people who have, either medical bills, essentially, a lot of people have collection accounts, right? Derogatory items that they need removed. So that's what's holding down the typical or average American. These whether it be student loan, late payments, like I said, medical bills, charge off credit cards. They're all derogatory items. So just getting these derogatory items removed, and also knowing the current, the correct balance. As far as having enough revolving lines versus installment accounts, et cetera, et cetera. Making sure that your credit score is going to be calculated to a point where it's going to benefit you.
Got it. So a lot of revolving lines, and obviously utilization is key. I know because I can swing my credit score 200 points just by overutilizing and drop it back
Yeah.
down. But depending on the balance I'm holding. So revolving credit lines, what is the suggested amount that you should have out there?
I always say you want to have a minimum of three. With the lenders that I work with, for example, their preferred requirements all list that you have at least three. The minimum is two. That's really a stretch. So I would say three revolving lines of credit, and then making sure, of course, that they have low balances. And another quick tip that I can talk about as far as revolving lines of credit, you want to start early. So if you're some people, because I come across some people and they're like, I try to stay away from credit cards. Well, you don't have to think of a credit card as a negative thing, because you want to look at this as a tool for building credit. Because if you're late on the ball and you just start getting revolving accounts and they're too new, the lenders aren't going to want to lend to you because you have to have revolving lines of credit that on average are at least a year old, maybe even 2 years old.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my worst cards that I made the most mistakes with is actually the card now that I'm like, oh, thank God I still own that card, because it's like bringing up my average time from years. So if you could give it, well, I'm going to ask that at the end, right? So I already know one of the pieces of advice is go open a credit card. So and one of the tips that I've run to is, so I get 26 lines of credit and I use those as a way to leverage different assets. And but the biggest thing that I've found is if I don't use it, I do lose it. Like over time, if you don't go and use the credit card, they will drop your limits. And if you overuse the credit card, they'll drop your limits. And you got to find this balance. What do you suggest people use their cards for each month? Like if you're setting up these three lines and you just have your normal expenses, what are you supposed to do with those other two cards?
Right. So if you have a card that you're not using, just simply buy lunch, get gas. Once a month can be like a golden standard. That's how, especially if you have several lines of credit or credit cards. This can be a tool that you use to even get them to increase your credit limit. Right. If you go and get Chick-fil-A, once or twice a month, you're not even thinking of that as significant, right? But you want to make sure you pay off that full balance a few days early before the statement date. And when you do that, they're going to see like, okay, this guy may not be spending a lot of money or gal, but he's using the credit that we gave him, which is going to incentivize them to give you a higher credit limit, especially when they see that you're always making early payments. So, and then if for example, even if you have a card that has a balance, and you are making payments or making purchases, make sure you're not making just the minimum balance, because that's like the death sentence, right? You're going to be paying off that Xbox One or PS5 that you just bought for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So you might as well, think, when you're using that card, it's a tool. It's not like borrowing money. If you don't have the money, if you can't afford to spend it, unless it's an emergency, just try to keep that in mind when you are using that credit card.
Yeah, Kelvin, it just like bringing me back to flashbacks. So I went to one seminar. I spent like 10 grand on a credit card. Then I went to another seminar. I spent 25,000 on the credit
Man,
card. Another seminar for 5 grand. And then, one of my houses needed, a sink or a kitchen or a roof. And before you knew, I was $150,000 in credit card debt. And it was like the minimum payments were 4 grand, right? Minimum payments were 4 grand a
yeah,
month. And
man.
it was intense, let me tell you.
I
But
know it happens like that too.
it happens quick, but you can dig out of it fast in this business anyway. In real estate, you can
Yeah.
dig out of it pretty
Mhm.
quick as long as you're doing
Right,
enough flips and stay ahead of it. So
right.
there is always a way to get back, but to clean it up, it's almost better never to get it that bad in the first place, right? Like just
Exactly.
stay focused. If you've got the money, put the money down. If you don't have the money and you know you want it, look, every
Right,
guru ever, including myself, will come back around next year. Like we'll always be back. Like
right,
we're
right,
leveling
right.
up, and so it makes
Exactly.
sense to invest in yourself for sure. And I still put things on credit cards, including marketing and renovations, like for sure, because it makes
Hmm.
sense. But I like what you said about minimum payments. Like if you just put down a minimum payment, you're going to bury yourself, and you got to do something big to get out of it, which is time consuming sometimes, or you got to get that skill. Uh,
Hmm.
but I do for my monthly cards. Those one like there's 26 of them, man. Like I put an automatic payment on every single one of them. I found something that is automatic, comes out every month, and
Perfect.
I put the minimum payment like automatic. So I never, ever, ever, ever have missed a payment on anything in my life because
Right.
minimum payment is always on, right? It's just like
Yeah.
as soon as you
Right.
get a
Right.
card, boom, minimum payment, automatic, whether there's a
Yeah.
balance or not. So you're always protected. I think the worst thing you could ever do is miss a payment. Is that fair to say?
Oh man. Yes. 100%. I mean, think about it like this. A missed payment is 35% of your entire score. Combine that with credit card utilization, that's 65% of your entire score. So that's why I always tell people who are scared of credit cards, listen, this is the tool, the one tool that you can use to literally boost your credit score, and at the same time, it can it can bomb your credit score if you aren't really savvy enough to understand the power that it holds. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the piece and it's also the piece, two-edged sword. It's the one that's like, man, if you do it right, this is the one you
Yeah.
got. But if you do it wrong, it's hard to recover. And the payment, man, like utilization is it's a big chunk of it, but you could
Yeah.
always swing that back. With missing a payment, there's no coming back from that. There's no resolution. I mean, you can if you fight it right now, Kelvin, you've actually gone and fought those before, right? Bad derogatory
Yeah.
remarks. What is the
Hmm.
success rate that you've seen on getting those cleaned up?
um I would say right around maybe 90%, 85, 90%. The biggest difference is, whether it's a closed account, open account, right? If it's an installment account, like if you had a loan versus if it's just a medical bill, like I mentioned before. There's different, varying factors if you're dealing with the creditor, original creditor versus dealing with random collection agency that you have no, knowledge about. But yeah,
Yeah, which one's easier?
when you're dealing with the collection agency, right? Because and everyone knows this. The first thing you want to do when you're disputing well, maybe not disputing any type of derogatory item is you want to see if they can even verify or validify the actual item. So if they have no idea who the person is, like for example, if you have a medical bill and it's still with whatever the name of the company, whoever the what you call it, not the bank, I'm thinking about credit cards still, but the medical institute, right? They have the ability to easily grab an itemized bill and prove that this is yours. But ABC collection agency knows nothing. All they know is, hey, we paid that medical place, we paid your debt. Now we're trying to get you to pay the debt. And the truth of the matter is, you don't even have a contract with that collection agency, so you're not even liable to paying them because you have no contract with them. That's why they, have all these, abusive tactics to try to bully you into paying them because they've already paid your debt for you. So, they know you don't know that. So when they call you, all you know is I owe somebody, and they're saying they're going to garnish my wages. But at the end of the day, you don't even have a contract with this random company. And so when you dispute with them, it's a lot easier to get it removed because they don't have the resources or the documents to prove that this, is a valid debt.
Nice. So Kelvin, you clearly are a negotiator, a hardball negotiator when you're talking to credit companies.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, I try to. Yeah,
That's who you
yeah,
want in your
you
corner. I
gotta,
like that.
yeah, you got to, man, because I can talk about them for a while. Try not to. I really despise these collection agencies, man. They break the rules. They're shameless. And the biggest reason why I really despise collection agencies is because, again, they'll try to bully you into paying them, and they have no intention of removing that derogatory item from your credit report. So imagine all the millions of dollars that's basically thrown away when people pay these collection agencies, and they are surprised when months later or even a year later they look on their credit report and they still see that that collection account on their credit report, and they're like, what the hell, I paid this, why is it still here? Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, bottom feeders of society. God bless them all, right? They fill a purpose. That's why they're still there, I guess.
Oh
So
yeah, they make money, that's for
yeah, you're
sure.
fighting the power, though. I like it, Kelvin. So when you go back and talk about mortgages for a little bit, how does a mortgage affect
Hmm.
your credit score? Obviously, mortgages are not beginner level, but at the
Hmm.
point that a lot of our investors are playing at, they've got multiple mortgages. How does that affect your score?
It definitely affects it in a negative way when you try to go and get more funding.
Yep.
So for anybody who is, going the traditional route when trying to purchase a real estate investment property, I would say, listen, you need to start building business credit ASAP if you don't already have business credit. Everybody knows about OPM, but you need to use um, a different tool that's going to separate you from the debt. If you go and get two mortgages for some properties that you are renting out, and then you need a personal loan, for example, they're going to look and see, sir, you have, or ma'am, you have two new loans on your credit report,
And they're
and we're
big.
talking, they're not small loans. You're talking several hundred $1,000. You look like you're in distress, and they won't care if you say no. These are actually assets. These are revenues of income. They're not gonna look at it that way. They just see debt. They see you owe. So on the business credit as side of things, it's not going to impact your credit score, your personal credit score. And so, it's essentially all the profit that you make. It's like you didn't spend a penny, so that's always the better route to take. And to answer your question in a more direct fashion, those late payments, man, if you end up making a late payment, we already talked about it, man, your score can drop easily 50, points just by missing one new late payment or more.
Yeah. No, mortgages are they're powerful again. Like they go in the right direction, they go in the opposite direction, and every time. So in the beginning, I put I think 3 or 4 houses on my personal credit before I
Mhm.
realized like the banks just don't like that. They don't like it. I started taking loans off. I got to a point where I had no loans in my own personal name, but then that was having the opposite effect. So you want the installment payments from one of the houses, and all the other houses should be on your credit of your business. So there's definitely a lot of elements, Kelvin. Credit is not a simple machine, but it's got rules, it's got processes. You follow them, and you get good at them, and you get a teacher like you who's gonna hold somebody accountable and keep them going through it the right way. It
Right.
works a lot easier, right? It can be learned, it can be fixed. Kelvin, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and get some more advice for their particular situation, say they're about to go buy a house, or they've bought a bunch of houses and they just want to clean things up. Because even me, you know, I was years into the business and still have had to go fix my credit every so often just because of just too many loans in a year, too many things going on, or high utilization. Fortunately, never had to deal with a missed payment, but I've had not derogatory marks out there, but I've had too many inquiries. I got to the point where I had 17 inquiries at one time, and anything over 12, they're like, no, we're not interested in working with this. So there's definitely a lot of different reasons somebody might go and get it cleaned up. We got a few minutes left. Kelvin, if you could go back, actually, before we do that, what's somebody could contact you? What's your easiest contact? Website, email, phone number? What's your contact?
Yeah, so website is greenscalecredit.com. That's all one word, greenscalecredit.com. You know, you can go there, and if you want to sign up for any of our services, because we do offer credit restoration. I do credit consultations. So if you're somebody who's wanting to build credit, I can help you there. We also have trade lines available. And then last but not least, we do also have personal funding that you can use for real estate. You can get up to $250,000, you know, of course, if you are qualified. And then our phone number is 912-304-0099. So you can give us a call or even shoot me a text, and we can definitely help you there.
Awesome. Kelvin, right after the interview, if you could just shoot those over to me, shoot me a text. I'll make sure I drop those into the YouTube channel. So if you go back to 20-year-old Kelvin McNeil and give yourself 3 pieces of advice to get your credit lined up or just move your life into the right direction, what 3 pieces of advice would you go back to give to your 20-year-old self? Make sure you're set up for the goals you had.
Okay, good question. The first thing that comes to my mind is read more. Read more, man. Invest in financial literature. Well, you know, learning more about finances, how to budget, how to, you know, what a real asset is, right? Learning not just, you know, because there's some people who think, you know, a fancy watch is an asset. I myself don't think it is. If it doesn't pay you, if it isn't a stream of income, it's not an asset. I wish I could tell myself that at the age of 3. Like, I need to know that earning just a paycheck alone is not the, you know, all be it all. But lastly, I would say probably start a business. Start a business. I wish I would have started a business a lot sooner. 20-year-old self, perfect age to start a business, right? Yeah, that's what I would tell myself.
I love that. So read more, start a business. And what is the book that you would say if somebody was going to start reading more and jump into it? What book?
That's easy. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
that's
man.
that's the easiest. You know, like every teenager should be given Rich Dad Poor Dad, because for me, I didn't read Rich Dad Poor Dad until I was 30, and it changed my life. It changed my whole way of thinking. So right out the gate, that's the first book I would hand myself. Here, read it now.
I'll say I think I was 28 or 29, man, right around the same age. And now it's part of the foundational 5. There's 5 books that I have anybody who comes to one of my mentorship programs. It's, you know what, these are the 5 books. And first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad. You just need that awareness.
Yes.
Kelvin McNeil, phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for adding value to us. If you are listening right now and you want to learn more about your credit, you can go to gualtermerlo.com and look up the information for Kelvin McNeil. Go to greenscalecredit.com and reach out to him personally. Also, on the website, we have a ton of different tools for your financial education. If you want to learn what the other 5 foundational books are, if you want to know about our 52 Weeks to Wealth, which is a free program that we provide to anybody who's looking to invest or build a business, like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says, build business, buy real estate, retire young, retire rich. Cheers to your success, Kelvin. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you. All right, you too.
When you have a choice.
Thanks for having me.
Always work with the best. Later, my man. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good night or day.
Day.